Welcome to Unstitching ADHD Urban Ed Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Stanley Ekiyor, and I am excited to introduce today's guest, Dr. Jennifer Singer. Jen wears two remarkable hats. As a devoted parent navigating the unique journey of raising a child with ADHD, and as an insightful educator who brings passion and expertise to the classroom. Again, thank you for gracing our podcast today and for your openness in sharing your experiences. So, Dr. Jane, can you introduce yourself to our listeners? We are excited to learn more about you.
So Jennifer Singer, I've had an opportunity to be in the world of education for over 20 years, and I have been everything from a general education teacher to a special education teacher to doing professional learning for educators to being a director of pupil personnel services, a principal of a private school, as well as now I'm working for the state education department. So I've had a lot of great experiences there, but my most rewarding experience, of course, is having my family and having my two boys that I raise, and one who has the spontaneity and the loveliness.
Talking about your kids, can you describe for us your journey as a parent with a child with ADHD?
So I am a huge fan of Brene Brown, and I just actually listened to her podcast. She recently, on March 20th, identified that she was in a salon getting her hair done, and this gentleman was a private pilot, and he engaged in a conversation with her about the human scale and learning to fly. And it was not anything to do with ADHD, but the actual example that he used resonated significantly with me. And that's where I definitely jolted me to want to share that in our conversation today. So the pilot identified that when you're learning to fly, that you learn in a two-seater plane. And that's how you learn. And when you're learning in a two-seater plane, when you turn left, your whole body moves left. When you turn right, your whole body moves right. And if you get a gust of wind, then you feel that gust of wind under you. And when you're going down, you're kind of disoriented because you're just in this human scale, but you feel all those feelings around you. You could feel it going this way and that way. And this experience of being a new pilot, I have to say, maybe similar to a student, or a child that feels like who has ADHD. And that's how I feel sometimes when I experience my son. And they feel an experience and they get absorbed so much within that moment. And that's where I really feel that that's how it feels sometimes. One of the things that he said, like when a pilot is learning too, like it's called what's called controlled flight into the terrain. And that's really when they crash. The entire time they think they have controlled flight. Like they think they've got this, right? The entire time. And then all of a sudden, before they know it, they've crashed. And I feel like sometimes that's what it's like for my son. Like I know that he's in control. He feels like he's in control. He's confident. And then all of a sudden, like, nope. He, something, he crashed. He had a big, unexpected behavior, or, he is really feeling a certain emotion, or he's just, has some negative self-talk, So I really feel like that scenario really identifies how it is kind of raising a child too.
So how was your child diagnosed? What were the initial signs or challenges that you noticed?
Well, as you know, there's like a lot of comorbidity with, ADHD. So ADHD can sometimes be linked with other things. And at first, like there was, people would say he's all boy, but it really was, he's also has anxiety as well. And that was what really came out first. It was the anxiety. So he would have really big emotions about like the weather, like it's raining and oh my goodness, we're going to have a flood. Or we have invisible fence around our house and the dog's going to escape the visible fence. We're never going to see him again. So really we started down the journey of having those anxiety components and just having those big feels around and just feeling everything. Like he is that person that will connect and feel and have so much empathy for somebody. And so the journey of how he got diagnosed was we started off with anxiety. We went to a therapist, and said, hey, we're going through these different things. And of course, when he's talking in that one-to-one setting, he is an active young boy. And they're like, we think he has some of these tendencies and that. I'm like, Yeah, for the ADHD of, not the more of the hyperactivity component more than the inattentive part. Like he doesn't have that necessarily inattentive piece. And he can just continue, and he's very expressive and talk about all the pieces, but as fast as his mouth goes, his body goes sometimes just as fast. One of the pieces was for him was he was just having all these swings. Like it was like the emotional swings, but then it was like he kept on saying like, "Mom, I feel like there's something in my body, like I can't control it." Like he goes, "No matter how much I try, I can't control it." And we're like, "Okay." And so we went the therapy route, which he still is in therapy, which is fantastic, And then we just went through those whole other pieces of, those regulation, working on a lot of different skills there. But then we just came to the decision too, as a family, that maybe it is time to try some medication, and that's where we're at right now. He says he doesn't like it, and that's something that we're working through as a family right now. And the part that he doesn't like is he doesn't eat. So he says I have to eat before I get my medicine so I can not, because I don't eat the rest of the day. And then sometimes he gets on these eating binges at night for the most part. He goes, I just don't like that part about it. So that's really our journey with it. And he does say he likes it at school because he can focus and things like that, but he doesn't like to take it on the weekends. He wants to just to be, and we can tell a difference and we're fine with it. He does well, he's doing great. Full transparency, he doesn't have any plans or anything like that. We're just managing it with communication with the teacher, really. Like, I think that's the biggest piece as a parent. Like, I know that there's sometimes a lot of shame with certain diagnoses and things like that, and how we celebrate it. Like, we talk about the celebrations of everyone has different, diagnoses. They might not know it, but we all have different things that make us who we are. And those are wonderful things. And that's how we really celebrate it as a family. So, like, we talk about it at home. We talk about all the time about strategies to use, like, state testing is a big piece right now for kids. And like, right, what we did last night was we talked about state testing. Then I wrote to his teacher and said, this is what we did last night. And lo and behold, he had a fantastic day today, because she's like, I'll give him that love and extra support right before that, like, boost in the arm, that he needs. And really, it just continual communication with the school, I think, is really important. This is the first year that I feel really comfortable that his teacher gets it. So I think that's one of the pieces of how do I support my child. I listen to him every day. We do at home, this is just our own strategy that we do as parents. We do the thermometer of like how he's feeling, and did he have unexpected behaviors today or unexpected feelings that maybe caught people by surprise or yourself by surprise. And we talk about that all the time. Don't trust me, it's not been easy. At times I'm like, got another phone call. Like, how are we going to deal with this? And that it's been tough. It's not been all sunshine and roses by any imagination, but he's growing, he's learning, we're celebrating those small pieces. And I think that kind of like segues in as an educator too. Like, how do I support students? And I think this is where I've been very fortunate and grateful for all the training and learning I've had as an educator. But one of the things I think is really important that I do as a parent and that I do as an educator is I do a self-assessment of me first. What's my own understanding of the need? Like, yeah, I see students all day long with different needs, and there's a continuum. There's some in the middle, and everyone in between. So what's my understanding of like whatever the need is? It could be ADHD, it could be something else, but really with ADHD, and maybe the need isn't necessarily the need of the individual, but what's the need for myself? It could be a need of learning more about how to parent better as someone who has ADHD, or how to be an educator to really support students. What's my own understanding of the need, or what do I need to get? Because if you do this quick assessment, you're like, okay, I got what I have. But these next two questions I think are the biggest two, is what kindles specific like emotions, beliefs, or biases of this need and stop you in that moment. Because really the question is, how am I feeling right now whenever that thing is happening, or how you're perceiving that child or my own son. Like, what's my feeling? And I really think that self-assessment of yourself and the environment is really important. I think by you doing that and showing that, you're modeling as well. And it says, like, just take a breath before, and like really take things in before you do. And I think that's one of the hard things sometimes for students to do, or my own child to do. Like, let's pause for a second. And then, now say something, And that's really hard to teach, but it's also such an essential skill.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, how were you able to really advocate for your child in such a way that there was understanding between you and school? Was there any point in time where you struggled with getting people in his educational environment or in the community to understand his needs?
Yeah. Like, I know for his school, we're always relatively open because we feel that if they don't know, they can't help. Like, that's kind of just our parenting, a little bit of our core. And at times we do believe that just like anything in life, some things are not matches, but we have to work and persevere and learn about like if something's not a match. And sometimes educators are fantastic educators, but they're not necessarily a perfect match for that child. This year, something that we haven't done, we really just advocated again to his teachers and reached out to the screening team because he changed schools and just said he really needs a teacher that looks like this, or has this type of approach that is, has a structure, but has that care and love and understanding about what does that look like. And again, we're very fortunate. My husband also is in a program, assistant principal of a program that has often many children with ADHD in it. And it's more of the perception of the whole would be more rambunctious, outgoing, have a lot of different high unexpected behaviors. And I think from our perspective, when I say that, is we know what it's like and we can really talk to teachers in a way that help lead. We ask for parent teacher conferences outside of parent teacher conferences because we just thought it was super important. And that's what we're just trying to teach him to like advocate for himself, to reach out to those teachers. And so to get back to your original question, how do we advocate with teachers is just continue to be like open and positive with, with teachers. And that's really been essential for us. And again, I think I know how to navigate the school system and not everybody does. And that's one of my advantages. And that's what I want to help people with because everyone has had their own experiences in those different pieces. And that's really challenging. And so people might be listening to this today, like, that's so easy for her, but not easy for me.
Mhm.
And that is, it's not light that I know that, I take that very to my heart because it makes me sad that, or frustrated and mad, maybe all the emotions of like, it shouldn't be that hard for parents just to reach out. And having that open and honest conversation is really hard, especially when people don't feel like they're heard. And that's why I continue to say the best strategy is to communicate. I think it's just really hard for parents to feel how this is because I know I've been in that situation where my child's doing something and I'm like, oh, everybody's looking at me. And then, like, how do I get out of this?
You pointed out that your knowledge, right? That
Mm-hmm.
your background and your husband's background and knowledge helped you greatly
Mm-hmm.
in navigating school and the community. Now, if there's a parent out there
Mm-hmm.
that now says, well, I don't have all those information, what kind of advice would you have to help them?
Yeah. I think most parents feel a connection through their child's career of education with a teacher. And if you get that connection, that serendipitous connection with them, and hopefully you have multiple, but you might only have one or two, and it might be a lot later than you hoped. Don't lose hope because that part of it's like, you found it, right? That's just like, that's life too. I know I'm still waiting to learn things, and yeah, I found it, right?
Mhm.
Talk to that teacher that you feel comfortable or that person that you feel comfortable with. It doesn't, sometimes it's like learning more from the nurse. She was great and talked about some of her own experiences with her own children as well as students in the school. Is like, oh yeah, he's similar like this, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever thought about this or that? And that was a great experience. But sometimes it's really hard to trust. But I think just trying to make that connection with that one teacher. There are different programs out there that are parent education programs that are sometimes helpful. There are some good programs through UC or the University of Rochester Medical Center. Unfortunately, it's sometimes about access and what can you access. There are some great school programs that are like embedded in schools. I'm going more of the, like there's like primary project, or there's like second step, or, that's a curriculum piece. Like there's those different pieces that you learn potentially. And I know that sometimes time's a factor for parents. I understand that completely. But if you find something that they're using these words like anger mountain, research some of those terms, because your kids are savvy. They tell you stuff all the time. For me too, it goes over my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, they were just talking about this. This is what that was the connection, But I think it's just, I know that everyone's style is different. And
Mhm.
I just feel like go with your gut and talk to the people that you feel that you have connections with. I want to give you all the information, then you can discern of how you want to move forward with it. It's not my piece. It's like, it's you of how you want to do it, what fits best with your family and how to move forward. But there are people within the school that will help. But I also know there are people that are sometimes school adverse for a multitude of reasons. And that has to be honored as well. And I don't know what that balance is. Maybe I have too much information sometimes of how to best answer.
Okay, let's now move into a teacher that is
Mm-hmm.
listening to us, or an administrator goes, oh my goodness, you guys don't know how I have 20 kids in the classroom and you expect me to focus on one. What will be your advice based on your experience?
Always have a structured choice. Always, like, which could be environmental, like a human need. Maybe it's yourself that you're going to help with that, a structured choice, or material needs. Typically, not always, because I know I'm focusing more on the hyperactivity, but there is the inattentive type that will just be quiet and just sink into the background, and you're like, they're doing great when they might not be.
Mhm.
And I think that that's the piece. You always have to have that structured choice. So like if it's like environmentally, like you're going to have them be able to stand up and sit down in their chair. You're going to purposely set these kids, in the environment where they can stand up or walk on a small carpet square by their desk. And yes, that's more elementary, but just think about the power of some of those elementary people. Like, oh, they could never work in the high school level. I know that I have put tape of where kids can walk in a high school classroom and said, this is your space. You can go right here in this space and I don't care. Like, this is what you need to do to be you. That's fine. You're not in anybody's way, and you structure it that way. Like, maybe that's the environmental piece. Or, you have to have a human component. You have to have some type of touch in with that student. It could be a multitude of different things. It could be just literally a check-in. It could be a post-it note that you walk around with and you put a post-it note on the student's desk. And it could be anything like, you're doing great today, to did you check it, question 9? And it's just that nonverbal prompt. Maybe that's that human piece that you need. Or maybe it's truly a material need. Maybe it's a fidget. Maybe it's something on your chair. Maybe it is an awakening activity for them that they have to do before they do actually their activity. Maybe they have to do some affirmations and things like that to get them going. But what's that structured choice? They're going to always get there. And I think that's the piece that I'm firm on. It doesn't matter if a student has ADHD or no diagnoses. The work always, it has to be completed, but how we complete it, there's a lot of different paths. So I think you have to have structured choice and have different pieces of like, oh, we're going to do writing right now. Well, they might sit there for 20 minutes and not write, but they truly might be thinking. And if they're not, but they're disturbing other kids because he's not writing or she's not writing. Is that a you problem as a teacher? Because that's one of your beliefs, emotions, biases? Or is it something that has to be done? But you always have to have something for a child to do. It has to be either mentally engaging for them. They are dreaming about whatever they are dreaming about, or maybe they have to get some of that physical motion out, or maybe they have a part in the, where they have to have some emotional regulation, where that check in, check out with somebody to really understand where they're feeling like, I need to go check in right now, or I need to pass the note from teacher to teacher. Yeah, some of those things are elementary, But again, if you have those things still do work at high school. It's all about how you present it to the student and what does that look like. You have to always direct the energy into a positive outcome. And you have to see that positive and celebrate it. And yes, you have 20 students and they're all different levels or different paces and different needs. But the whole piece is that's the piece of an educator that's the creative piece. That's the piece where you get to really show your talents and really lean on people. And you're not alone. Like, I feel like that's the piece too that people need to know. Like, I have these 20 students, I'm all by myself. Just like I said earlier, use your community. Talk to those other teachers. What does it look like for, hey, I'm seeing Stanley at first period. He's just not engaged, he's really lethargic. Stanley ninth period is like, man, he's going to tap dance his way out of here, So those are those things you have to really understand. Maybe it's because of a lot of different pieces, but I think that choice board is really important to give some choices to them of what that looks like. It can be as elementary as a bingo board, or say by the end of the week, you have all these assignments to do and figure out which way you're going to do it. Like, those are all, at the end of the day, if they're still doing the assignment, I think that's a great piece. Another piece that is sometimes unpopular is to match their energy. Match their energy. So like, oh, I can't believe that, oh my gosh, I can't believe it either. They're like, whoa, that's unexpected. And then they like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Mrs. Singer? And I'd be like, I go, yeah, I was unexpected when you did this. And then it just kind of gets them to self-reflect. I don't think that, I'm not remiss of how hard it is within that classroom. But listen, kids are telling you something every single day by their body language, by how they write something on a paper, their handwriting, how things are. They're telling you stuff every single day. Listen. Listen to that emotion. Listen to that quiet that they might be providing you. Listen to that rush that happens when they're always late, potentially coming to your classroom. That like part can tell you a lot. And if you can really be mindful of it, and you can kind of switch things up, because sometimes as educators, and just like it's hard. You sometimes have to do like trial and error. You have to set that balloon up in the air and say, this might work and it might not. And, you have to be okay with saying, didn't work. Didn't work. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, like, I have been a therapeutic crisis intervention for schools trainer. I think it's really like the LSI, that interview that you do with a student when they have a certain action, can be very helpful for teachers. And again, sometimes I say isolating conversation. If you put up part of your practice and have that communication that I was identifying before, and you are that teacher that goes up and talks to students all the time, regardless of what the piece looks like, I think that's going to build a lot of trust, and people will be able to connect with you. So you might have less, that you have to necessarily deal with. So like, isolate a conversation, explore people's points of view, summarize feelings. Yes, it takes time. None of this is easy. Like, if you think there's going to be a quick fix, there's not. It takes time, patience, reflection. But I know there's so many amazing educators out there that have the tools, but it gets tiring. What do I need for myself right now? So I'm not going there. How am I feeling right now? What do I need? Because if you take care of yourself, you're going to be able to take care of those other people.
Wow. Thank you so much for all you do. We are so grateful that you could share this time with us with your insightful and expert advice. We're really grateful, and we hope you will join us again.
God, thank you so much for having me today and letting me share this passion. I know a shared passion of yours, because we just want to empower others to be the best that they can be. So thank you.
If you have a compelling story, reach out to us, subscribe, share, and join our community so that we can unstitch ADHD. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. Thank you, and have a great day.